Welcome to Lair, the Alchemist, and we're back with another Sabbath Sunday here. Darren and I are continuing our countdown of our favorite Tony Iommi riffs. We went 20 through 11 in the last episode, and here we are to do our 10 to number 1. And at number 11, Darren had Children of the Grave. We're at number 10 now, and I also have Children on the Grave on my list, so I will put that at number 10. All the things Darren said in our last Sabbath Sunday about that, it's an iconic Sabbath riff, that sort of galloping, dun, 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 dun. That would be something that heavy metal, that is such a signature heavy metal thing. The bands later on would take that feel and speed it up, and do Iron Maiden made a career out of that galloping kind of riff thing. But man, when the drums kick, it sounds, I love the way the riff kind of sneaks in just with the guitar. But when the drums kick in and everybody's chugging along, that is
it's very
iconic heavy metal, heavy metal being created. Ground zero for heavy metal here is these early Black Sabbath albums, and that song especially is like, you see it sort of like Iommi planting these seeds, and we've talked about like Hole in the Sky is a seed that birthed Caius and the Stoner rock movement. Well, here is another one that, just heavy metal and doom metal and everything. So all right, what do you got at number 10?
Number 10, I have Under the Sun. Volume 4. That might be one of the heaviest riffs ever in music, not just Sabbath, but ever. I think it rivals anything that's come out since. You can go back to 1971 or 72. Was it 71 or 72? I'm not good with dates,
I think.
But go back to that year and say, it's not going to get that much heavier than this. I mean, you're talking about just low tone and slow. It's heavy as hell. So that definitely is where it may not be as iconic a riff as like Children of the Grave or Hole in the Sky or some of the other ones we haven't mentioned yet. It's very important in establishing that Iommi heavy master of riff, vibe. So, and I'm going to cheat again, and I'm going to say, I'm going to put it with a tie with the song on Mob Rules, Falling Off the Edge of the World, because once we get through the intro and the softer part of Falling Off the Edge of the World, when it goes into the 4 count and then it comes in with that riff, you know what I'm talking about? It's like so heavy, and it reminds me, I think the two riffs are similar in that they are probably the 2 heaviest Black Sabbath riffs of all time. When that kicks into Falling Off the Edge of the World, before it gets into the next part, which is another killer riff, but didn't make my list. But that beginning of the heavy part after the mellow part intro is so heavy, and it's just like it's incredible. I mean, there's no other word to describe it. I was listening to it recently. I'm like, how did they get? It's not just the tuning. It's not just the effect of the guitar. It's the production is involved with that. The production, the bass, the drums, everything is involved. It's all incorporated into that intense, heavy riff. It is so sick. I mean, it still amazes me. And that was in 1981. So we're going like 10 years later, and it just shows that, it's not getting any lighter. We've had some flirtations with some lighter riffs and music in Black Sabbath. We're talking about, we can get into even Laguna Sunrise on the same album, but you get into Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, and you've got some lighter songs. Certainly Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, but then 1981 bringing it back, still heavier than ever, incredible crushing riff. So those two, Under the Sun and the second part of Falling Off the Edge of the World, tied for number 10, cheating. Sorry.
All right, we're at number 9, and I also have Under the Sun on my list, so I'll put that on there for all the reasons you said. It's pound for pound one of the heaviest riffs of all time. It is the sound of dinosaurs
Yeah.
moving about the earth. It is the sound of planets colliding. It is,
Yeah. It's ridiculously heavy.
yeah,
It,
it's just
no.
it's defying gravity almost. It's like the earth getting sucked into itself or
Yeah.
something. It is just so heavy. And considering its time, I mean, this would be a good experiment to see. There certainly wasn't anything, in my opinion, heavier than that from a band besides Black Sabbath. When other people talk about the early metal bands, like they'll often mention Deep Purple or Uriah Heep, and I love Deep Purple, I love Uriah Heep, but they weren't playing riffs like that.
No, it wasn't this heavy. And I mean, people might put something in the comments because I'm going to say, tell me another riff that's as heavy. I mean, from that time that it came out until 5 minutes ago, give me another riff that's as heavy as the riff in Under the Sun.
That
And I
isn't
don't think
another Black
you
Sabbath
you,
song.
you can you can say, oh well, Hellhammer, I Hate God, or Sleep, or something like that. I'm still going to say, nah, it's not as heavy. It's not as heavy. Not as heavy as Under the Sun. There's plenty of heavy riffs, and but really, really heavy riffs. Definitely Hellhammer, Celtic Frost, I Hate God, Electric Wizard, you could say, Sleep, but it's still not Under the Sun heavy. So.
All right, what do you got at number 9?
Number 9, Into the Void, another iconic Black Sabbath Tony Iommi riff. It's like the staccato vibe of that riff was unlike anything I had heard at the time. I loved it. I still love it, but I remember I just listened to that when I got Master of Reality. Into the Void was my favorite song on Master of Reality, and I just listened to that song over and over and over again. I love the tone. It wasn't even so much, and it still isn't so much, Tony's riffs. The way the riffs sound is really important, and it really puts an otherwise great riff over the edge. And his tone on Into the Void is what really makes it for me. I just love it. Still one of my favorite songs, and I can listen to it anytime. I love hearing it live. I love hearing the last time I saw, well, not the last time, but when I saw Tony Iommi, probably the last time I heard them play it live was with Tony Martin, and they busted out Into the Void, and it sounded incredible. So yeah, Into the Void, one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs.
All right, we're on number 8, and I also have Into the Void, so I'll put that here. I'm going to cheat a little, and I'm going to say the opening riff plus the verse riff. The opening riff is super cool. When the verse riff kicks in, that chuggingness of the verse riff, and this is something that in this day and age of often guitar players will sometimes think, in order to get a heavy sound, I need to have tons of distortion and these high gain amplifiers that are really like just tons and tons of distortion. Iommi's guitar, listen to that Into the Void, that verse riff guitar sound. I mean, it's distorted, but it's not super muddy and saturated and all kinds of effects on it. It kind of is a little dry. It's a little primitive. You can hear all the you can hear every sound, in his picking, and it's just really just kind of there. And it just, his riffs are so, as we talk about these riffs, it really makes me think about how they're so good at, maybe he comes up with the riff, and the riffs are so they conjure up like images in and of themselves, and maybe that inspires these lyrics, because his riffs go so well with the subject matters in the song. And Into the Void is that the earth being destroyed and having to leave the planet and destroying the earth and everything. And it does have that apocalyptic uh,
Yeah.
vibe to it. So it is just a super, super crushing, super heavy riff. And that's
Yeah.
my number 8. What do you have at number 8?
Number 8, I've got Supernaut. Supernaut. It's one of the songs, another song that was a highlight on Volume 4 for me. Mentioned St. Vitus's Dance, and for lack of a better word, the hoedown effect also applies to Supernaut. And then, it has the intro riff, goes into the second riff, which takes it even, like Iommi so often does, takes it even lower into a cooler aspect. There's always this light, well, not always, but a lot of times he does this light and dark. Here's a cool riff. I'm going to get 2 minutes into that, or so many measures, and then I'm going to take it down even lower. That dynamic is happening here at Supernaut. And another interesting thing about Supernaut, it was one of the things that attracted Frank Zappa. I'm sure you probably heard about this.
Yeah.
Frank Zappa loved the song Supernaut. He unapologetically said several times in the press and in interviews and things like that he liked Black Sabbath, but in particular the song Supernaut. And when you're talking about it, a musical genius like Frank Zappa could find something appealing about a band that a lot of people dismissed as sort of like, dumb heavy metal, but Zappa swooped in and said, "Nah, it's a great song. It's a great riff. Love it." So, highlight on Volume 4 for me, Supernaut.
Okay, number 7, I am going to go with Lonely is the Word, that riff at the beginning. I'm not sure what it is, if he's like playing like open strings along with it or something. It
Yeah,
has this real like da 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 da. It's like a slightly different chord than Iommi would normally play. It has a different like tone to it or something, and again, it's a dirt simple riff. It's really just one chord, ba da da da, ba da da da, ba da da da, ba. I guess 2, but it's a very very simple riff. But it's the tone that carries it. It's sort of the rhythmic attack of it. It's the immediacy of the riff. Iommi is so great at. It's not like you have to kind of sit around and you're like, okay, that part of the riff is cool, or you're sort of waiting for something to happen. It's like he has it's the knockout blow, right? For the first punch is the knockout
yeah. A
blow.
lot of
There's no
times,
sort of like easing into it or fumbling around and searching for the riff and stumbling across it halfway through the song. It's like Iommi just comes out swinging, right from the beginning of so many songs. It's just such a big. He's the master of like these statement riffs, these massive riffs. And again, it's like, they're so simple that in the hands of lesser beings, nothing would come of it. But there's just something about
yeah,
when it's in the hands of Tony Iommi, he takes these things and he just crafts mountains and monuments out of them.
yeah. The way he builds off of an already cool riff and takes it into a progression of something either heavier, lower, doomier, faster, whatever. It's the way that, and you could tell that it's almost like that the opening riff inspired him to go on to the next riff, but without the initial riff, it wouldn't have gotten to where it goes on the second, phrase of the song, or the second part of the song, or maybe even the outro. So organic in the way that he expresses this concept of heavy, which is so unique at the time that Black Sabbath came out. There were bands playing heavy, and it was mostly from their interpretation of blues. And so there was a heavy blues. I mean, certainly there's some heavy Led Zeppelin songs. Dazed and Confused is pretty heavy. Some heavy Deep Purple songs, some heavy Uriah Heep songs. But no one took heavy to the level that Iommi did, with the same mindset, taking the blues and elaborating on it, internalizing it, putting it out there in a way that was completely unique and basically, I mean, I don't care what anybody says, invented heavy metal.
Yeah.
Simple as that, you know.
All right, what do you got at 7?
NIB, another iconic riff. Well, they're all iconic. This one definitely in the higher range of the iconic riffs. Borrows a little bit from Sunshine of Your Love. I mean, you know, that's not you know, that's pretty noticeable, but it takes it into a darker realm. Um, it's a great riff, simple, effective. It's a classic Black Sabbath song. You would be hard pressed to buy a greatest hits, best of
Yeah.
compilation that's not going to have NIB on it, mostly because of that riff. The rest of the song pretty much corresponds. The lyrics are dark, you know. Of course, we all know the subject matter of, you know, Satan and love, or, you know, Satan, Lucifer having some sort of a love affair with a woman, you can assume. But uh, that's secondary to the heaviness of the riff. The heaviness of the riff probably affected or influenced the subject matter, where you're bringing into a demonic being, you know, because it's so heavy. But yeah, NIB.
Yeah, legendary for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we're on number 6, and I'm going to go with Disturbing the Priest from Born Again. An album much aligned for its bad production, but sometimes I think the murky cloudiness of the production actually helps. And for me, in this particular song and this particular riff, it's a very quirky, odd Iommi riff. It has a do ba do ba gator. You know, it's like it's this,
Yeah.
this type of riff, and he's playing like these really high notes in it. I think they're like harmonics on the guitar. So it's just kind of a really bizarre, quirky a riff, but it's just so strange. And I just remember hearing that, you know, for the first time, that I was just, it just jumps out at me as a real different kind of Iommi riff. And
Yeah.
the weirdness of that record, the weirdness of the mix, and the claustrophobic mix, for some reason, that particular riff works really well for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird one. All right. In fact, I got a Born Again song too. So I'm going to
Yeah.
come in at 5 with my.
Well, we're on 6 still, so this is a
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. Right. Well, I had mine at number 5, so I'm going to move it down a little bit. Keep It Warm.
yeah.
Keep It Warm. I have my issues with Born Again. I always talk about that. You know, the production being the primary problem here. The mix, I guess you could say. But Keep It Warm. Wow, what a riff. The way that it comes in, he just kind of like just churns right into that, the tone. And we've talked about this before. It's not just the riff, it's the way that he plays it. You know, it's he knows it's heavy and he plays it heavy. You know,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that's cool. It's like he's well aware of how cool this riff sounds, but then it's like he gets into it, and you can hear that in the way that he expresses the riff through the way that he's playing it. Keep It Warm is one of those songs, man, that just reaches down deep, pulls it up, puts it out there. For any of the problems or the issues that I have with Born Again, I would never dismiss it as an album that isn't important in its own way. And you're right. I mean, there are these strange things, and that was one of the things that kind of put me off initially. Songs like Disturbing the Priest, Digital Bitch, even Trash, the way that there's like some kind of strange sound in the background of that riff. But Keep It Warm, Meat and Potatoes riff, it's definitely Sabbath. Total Iommi goodness oozing from that riff.
Yeah, I love that song.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at number 5, and I'm going to go with, you mentioned this earlier, sort of like a little one of your cheat ones, Headless Cross. For all the reasons you mentioned earlier, it does sort of, for me, it's the riff of the Tony Martin era. It's Heaven and Hell would be the signature Dio riff of the Dio era. You could pick a couple maybe from the Ozzy era. But for me, that main riff in Headless Cross is, you know, a signature Tony Martin era riff.
Yeah, it's definitely when you think of, or if you're trying to, and a lot of times this happens, you're trying to talk to somebody, tell them the virtues of the Tony Martin era, which you know, for big Sabbath fans, you know, it's not usually an argument. You know, everybody understands Tony Martin era is really important. If you like Black Sabbath, you like the Tony Martin era. You know, you're a fan all the way. Some people are casual or they're more partial to the Ozzy era, the Dio era, and it's important to express to them how important the Tony Martin era is as well. One of the ways to do that is by letting them hear cross and say, "This is why this is valid. Listen to this." You know, killer riff.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, what do you got at number 5?
Number 5, uh, "Electric Funeral." One of the songs that when I first got paranoid, uh, I was listening to it with my uncle, who was a little older. He instantly recognized Electric Funeral from the days when he was hanging out with his friends, drinking beer, doing whatever they do, kids would do, teenagers would do in the 70s. And that song was in the soundtrack or was in the background of whatever it was he was doing, Black Sabbath. And I was young, I was 11 or 12. And he said, "Oh, yeah, Electric Funeral, man. That's great, great riff." And I always remember that. That's one of my takeaways from Electric Funeral. But the sound of the riff, the wah wah pedal,
Yeah.
you know, that haunting. I don't know how to describe it. It just has a really unique. It's different for a lot of reasons, but it's still just as heavy. It's just as valid as any of the other 20 songs that we have as far as like the great Iommi riffs. When it comes in, I mean, it's another one of those songs where I think that riff influenced the lyrics that accompanied it in the song. You know, the atomic bomb and eyes melting to blood, and it's like you know it's that kind of a riff, it's that kind of a song. So yeah, Electric Funeral, pretty important.
Okay, we're on number 4, and I have Electric Funeral on my list, so I'll put it at number 4. All the reasons you mentioned. For me, what really does it is the wah wah
Yeah,
pedal. That effect on it is just so cool, and it's just a single note thing. He's not even really playing full chords, just playing single note things, but shaking the notes and everything, and
yeah.
with that wah wah pedal, yeah,
Wow. Yeah,
right. And the way it just comes in, just right in on it, it's just awesome. So
it's another riff, I guess you could say, really established doom metal. I mean, I think a
yeah,
lot
it's
of
very
bands,
doomy riff. It's a very, very
yeah,
doomy riff.
a lot of bands have sort of like elaborated on that, taken that as an influence and
For
made it
sure.
into their own thing creatively.
All right, what do you got at number 4?
4, National Acrobat. Another unique vibe for Tony. And in a lot of ways, I think Sabbath Bloody Sabbath pushed things out, the album Sabbath Bloody Sabbath pushed things out for Black Sabbath. It got away from the more simplistic meat and potatoes, more or less basic blues-based riff song structure, and took it into a bigger production, more dynamics in the songs. Um, and National Acrobat is one of the songs where I think about, the progression from Volume 4 to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. One of the songs that comes to mind is the National Acrobat. I love the riff. I like how it kind of quietly approaches, but it's got a really cool tone. I love the rhythm of the riff. It's one of the songs that I first think about when I think of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, and of course the iconic title track, but more often a National Acrobat is a riff and is a song that I really associate with the progression from the early 70s Black Sabbath moving into the mid 70s. So it's pretty important to me.
Yeah, great pick. All right, number 3, I'm going to go with Super Czar from Sabotage. We've talked about how Iommi likes to come out swinging. This one's a little different. This one sort of sneaks up on you. It sneaks in
Yeah.
a little bit. It's like da 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 da. It sort of has this lurking in the shadows vibe to it, and that's kind of what I like about it. It's real, just kind of like on the edge there. It's on the edge of the forest. It's it's out there somewhere. It's in a dark room. I always just think of like, it's just sort of ominous and sort of lurking. It's a lurking kind of feel to it. And then when the choir comes in and they're sort of doubling the line too, it's just an awesome riff.
Cool.
All right, so that is 3. So we're on 3. Yeah.
Okay. So 3 for me is Voodoo. I love that riff. I love the song. It's a highlight for me on Mob Rules. I didn't initially, I mean, I liked the song when I first got Mob Rules studio album, but what really put it over the top for me was the live version on Live Evil. There's not, for me, a lot of takeaways for Live Evil, but Voodoo is one of them. And it made me go back and listen to the studio album and like it even more. It's a great album. Mob Rules, it's one of my favorite Black Sabbath albums. But there were songs that caught my attention immediately. Sign of the Southern Cross, Falling Off the Edge of the World, title track. Voodoo was cool, but it didn't really, capture my attention right off the bat. Hearing it live, I really got an appreciation for it. Went back, and now it's one of my, obviously it's one of my top 20 Iommi riffs. Subsequently, my top 20 Black Sabbath songs. I guess you could say that it kind of has that Martin Popov, Geronimo vibe to it a little bit. It's not dark. It's not doomy per se, but it has that quality that we talked about, like a Glory Ride or a Country Girl. It has that kind of vibe to it, and I think that's a really appealing vibe that Tony puts across in some of his riffs too. So Voodoo, yeah, great
Awesome.
riff.
All right, we're on number 2, and I'm going to go with Dirty Women.
Okay.
The opening riff, it's just really cool. It's a song that Iommi stretches out on, so it always kind of feels like a signature Iommi riff. When I think there's a lot of great riffs on Technical Ecstasy. We've already mentioned a few off of Technical Ecstasy, but this is an iconic one for me, later era Ozzy. I just always love that opening riff and the feel of it and everything, and just the way he plays it, the way he picks out the notes and everything. It's awesome.
Cool. So number 2 for me, and this is kind of in order, as far as importance, I guess. Over and Over off of Mob Rules. That is a crushingly heavy blues, hopeless, downtrodden. The lyrics correspond with it completely. Again, the riff probably wrote the lyrics, but man, that is like, there is no joy in that song. That's somebody going through the doldrums of depression with no way out. And that's, and if you're in that mood, I hope that you can seek therapy through listening to Over and Over, because it's that intense. But yeah, it's and and as it moves through the progression of the song, it kind of has like a lifting chorus or a melody in the background, that sort of is like a little bit of a ray of light in it. But man, for the majority of the song, it is just like, I don't know, pressingly heavy. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
absolutely.
I mean, yeah, and it's a simple riff, but I mean, no one else thought of it at the time. I don't remember hearing anything quite as heavy as that. And that's Iommi.
No,
Heavy riff.
it's a great riff, and it feels like it's moving backwards almost. It's so
Yeah,
slow. It's like
I know.
somebody pushing a boulder up a mountain, a stone wheel.
Yeah,
It's just
and,
like,
and when I first got into Mob Rules, I wanted to hear the songs that were a little bit faster. I wanted to hear the songs like Falling Off the Edge of the World, like Mob Rules, Country Girl, Voodoo. So I didn't really take a liking to Over and Over. It's the last song on the album. A lot of times, I'd only maybe listen to it when I was a kid for the first minute or two, and I'm like, okay, put something else on, or I'll flip the album over. As I got older, and even more recently, just appreciating the tone of it and the difference in mood and the shift from within the album from something like Mob Rules. I mean, there's such a variety of moods in that album, all under the banner of one of the heaviest albums ever. To me, and I've said this before, but I think it's the best heavy metal album of all time, because we do have different variations of sounds on this album, and it goes from the lighter type of vibe of Country Girl to the driving, forceful metal vibe of Mob Rules, to the more epic, with some keyboards in the background, atmospheric vibe of Sign of the Southern Cross, and then just heavy, downtrodden boom of Over and Over. Yeah, really got to appreciate that more recently. And that's really cool when you can have an album that you listen to for so many years and still discover, or still like be able to internalize something about an album that you've heard so many times that you haven't before. Just like all of a sudden you're drawn to a different song. I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. It's a great album closer.
Yeah.
All right, we're at number one, and number one for me, the riff that started it all.
My number one too.
Black
Right?
Sabbath. Yeah, I had to put it at number one. It's if 10,000 years from now, when archaeologists are digging around on the now destroyed planet Earth, and they're trying to trace back the lineage of where heavy metal began, this is the fossil that they'll dig up. This is the DNA that they'll extract from the dead planet, and prove that, okay, all roads, all branches of the tree, everything in heavy metal. This is what do they call that? The creation of the earth, the Big Bang.
Big Bang theory. Big Bang.
Big Bang. There was nothing before this, and then this just came out of nowhere. And from this and I don't care. People will go on about people like Blue Cheer and I love Blue Cheer and those people, but no, this is something different. This is a whole different feel to me. Again, it's dirt simple. It's a 3-note thing. It's so simple, yet it encapsulates what Black Sabbath is about, the vibe, the sound. The band talks about how when they played that riff and that song, that was a game changer. That's when they went from being covering blues songs, blue suede shoes, and blues standards. And when they came up with that riff and that song, it changed. It changed them. It changed music. They said they saw it on the faces of the people in the audiences. They would play that song and everybody would stop what they were doing. And they saw the effect that it had on people. And they knew that, okay, we're leaving behind the jazzy, bluesy Earth band that they were at the time. And now we're Black Sabbath. And it is, to me, it's Adam and Eve. It's the creation. It's it's ground zero. It's year one, day zero, day one. For heavy metal, it's just an amazing. Riff.
No, it's definitely the quintessential heavy metal song riff. There's nothing else like it. You could say that there's. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there's anything you can really compare that compares with Black Sabbath. It's you have to wonder what made him think of playing that. I mean, where did that come from? Actually, I mean, I think it comes from the way that he had to play once his fingertips were severed. The tuning, isn't that what kind of precipitated that?
Kind of the way he attacked the strings, and it was a riff that was inspired. Geezer had heard of a classical piece by Gustav Mahler, The Planets, and there's a part in that goes like, ooh, doo, doo. It has that tritone in it is such a signature thing in heavy metal now. But again, it's the way Iommi plays it. It's the touch. It's the feel. It's the tone, and it's amazing. Yeah, and here's something, everybody, all these guys that are tuning their guitars down to Z and super low tunings and everything, they think you got to be tuned super low to be heavy. That song isn't even on the lowest string on the guitar. It's on the third fret of the guitar. It doesn't even use the open string, yet it's just so heavy. And when he plays it quiet here again, that Tony Iommi
Yeah,
light and shade, brings it down, plays it real clean. It just really simple, like delicately picked, and then when it gets heavy and he comes in
yeah,
on it, it's just like the earth shakes
yeah.
for a
It's
moment.
like that riff. I mean, it just puts a mental image of an atmosphere in my mind, and it's always been the same since I was a kid. I always see somebody walking into. It's almost like an illustrate. To me, it illustrates like a Frank Frazetta painting of something in a stone throne room with pillars, and the beginning of the song is entering in there, and once you're inside, and the echo in that chamber is when the riff gets soft and ominous, and one of the things that's cool about it is it's very simple, but if you've ever tried to play it, coming from something where you're playing heavy metal or something, and you think, oh, this will be easy, it's slow, but it's the way that the drums and everything is paced that makes it kind of difficult to be right in on top or with that riff, and just go from something bombastic and just take it down, like, and go more for the atmosphere, a heavy atmosphere, and yeah, so yeah,
for
that's
me
incredible.
for me it was always, it fit perfectly with the album cover, and the album
Yeah,
cover always felt to me like very uh, like you're riding along on a stagecoach in an English countryside, and you pass that house, and that girl is outside, very hammer
yeah, yeah,
hard. You're
yeah,
going, a guy's going along on his stagecoach, and he looks over, and there's the house and the girl in
yeah,
front of it, and that riff kicks
yeah,
in, and then the credits start rolling, and it's just very English
yep,
countryside,
for sure.
that type of
I
horror,
know.
that English countryside, where me and you are Hammer horror fans, that
Yeah.
kind of that kind of that kind of thing. So
One of the things that when I started watching Hammer horror movies, it was just by chance, just watching, afternoon TV. A lot of the syndicated channels would have, creature double feature or horror theater or something. Very often it was, Frankenstein, the Peter Cushing, or I'm sorry, Christopher Lee Frankenstein, or the Christopher Lee Dracula. And in the era of when those films were made, it was around the same time that Black Sabbath was making music. So, you know, like you said, yeah, there's a lot about Black Sabbath's music that lent itself perfectly to like a soundtrack, not intentional, certainly not something that I think either one had any designs on, but from our perspective, to be able to make that comparison, it just two things just fit together so well. It's
for
like,
sure.
the music probably influenced me to be as into those movies as I am.
Same. All right, there you go. We had a little technical glitch there for a second. I'm not sure. We'll try to clean that up in post production. But that is our top 10 of our favorite Tony Iommi riffs, an impossible task because Tony Iommi is the king of the riff. So
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I was saying that it's like here we are, we've gone through all these songs, and it's just, putting everything into focus. This is like the heaviest stuff. Where do we go from here? I mean, is there anybody that can take the baton and move on to the next level of heaviness? I mean, I'm sure there's probably people that will comment like, oh, well, this band's heavy or this band's heavy, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think it heavy in the way that maybe it's a little bit heavier, maybe tonality wise, than Tony Iommi. But when you talk about what Tony Iommi did with music from what existed before, and the leap that took place, where's that next level? Where's that next, you know,
yeah,
crushing, where's the evolution? Where's it going to go? Or do we have enough? Was it set up so that that's all we need? That's it. Done. It's not going to get any heavier. You got it. you know, maybe that's it. And if that's it, that's okay too. Um,
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. But
All
yeah,
right. Well, let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let us know some of your picks and let us know what you think of our picks. And tune in, keep your eyes open for another Sabbath Sunday coming up soon. I think we have a couple more questions we need to answer from people, and we're going to be doing some other lists and fun things like this too. So keep an eye out for it there on on our regular Sabbath Sundays.
and yeah, if anybody has any suggestions as to
Yeah.
things that want to discuss or anything fun, we try to keep Sabbath Sundays kind of fun. We're not getting in depth and uh, getting really analytical about. I mean, we always do anyway, but usually reserve that for the podcast where we do like deep dives into like the history and all the things, specific things about the albums. Sabbath Sunday is kind of a fun thing. So if anybody has any ideas for a suggestion of something fun to discuss about Sabbath, just a place where fans can come and leave comments and listen. That's what it's all about. It'd be cool. So
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again, everybody. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.